So, Hebe, did you buy anything during Black Friday or Cyber Monday?
Proud to announce, no. I kept my overconsumption in check.
Maybe I should have taken advantage of the sales for holiday shopping, but I'm not exactly lamenting the loss of this year's pretty mediocre deals.
Oof. Let's circle back to that. Hi there, welcome back to another episode of Let's Circle Back. I'm your host, Hebe.
And I'm also Hebe. Just kidding, I'm Valentina.
We have officially entered the month of December.
That's right. 'Tis the season for Mariah Carey to defrost, peppermint hot cocoa, the Grinch, long puffer coats, short days with long hours, warm, soup-based meals, and a barrage of holiday campaigns vying for your end-of-year dollars.
That we don't have. I would love, though, to be an influencer during the holiday season. Something I'm actually a little envious of are the advent calendars that they receive. It's a little too expensive for me to buy for myself, but can't I just receive one as a PR package? So, coming into the holiday season, we cannot avoid talking about Black Friday. Apparently, Small Biz Saturday is becoming a big thing, and then Cyber Monday. And even though layoffs have officially hit 1.1 million this year, highest since the pandemic, as well as the plummeting consumer sentiment, Adobe Analytics reported that Black Friday sales reached new records this year, with, I believe, $11.8 billion in online purchases. And that was just Black Friday alone, not factoring in the spend during the Saturday and Monday. And I think it's really crazy to me that the sales timeline has really prolonged. Or maybe just in past years, I don't do much of that shopping because I wasn't employed. But the concept of having 3 sales holidays, one after the other, in just the span of 4 days seems a little excessive for me. Not to mention that there are brands out there trying to carve out their own sales event ahead of Black Friday. So something I came across was actually IKEA, who give their members a discount of $10 off every $100 spent from mid-November up till Black Friday before that sale kicks in. And I know as a girly, Sephora is where I go to for my makeup, but they run their big annual savings early November for insiders, in addition to current Cyber Week deals.
Yeah, something I've noticed is that holiday marketing timelines seem to be moving earlier and earlier as time goes by. Especially this year, I was seeing Halloween pumpkins at Costco in August. And then I feel like I started seeing Christmas decorations in September or October. I don't understand why we've been holiday shopping maxing. It doesn't make sense to me that people are shopping for Halloween stuff before the month of October. And if you do a quick Google search, you will see that a lot of shoppers this year began their holiday gift shopping not just before Thanksgiving, but before Halloween. So people are doing their December Christmas shopping or otherwise before the leaves turn orange. It's just hard for me to wrap my mind around that. I do think it's not necessarily their fault though, because when it comes to this quarter of the year, there are a lot of manipulative marketing tactics in play that are driving their behavior. So we're going to try to open up the psychology box again, even though Hebe and I are not psychology majors or psychologists. I think one thing that we see a lot of is anchoring. And for those of you who did not take Psych 101 or social psychology, that's essentially when you use relativity to create the illusion of a certain value. So if a website shows you the original price right next to the sales price, it'll make you feel like it's worth it to buy something at the lower of the two. Whereas if you just see an absolute price, you might make a judgment based on what your budget was or how much you're willing to spend. Something else that really pushes you towards swiping your credit card is the idea of a limited time sale, a flash sale, today only, exclusive, that sort of language really creates the illusion of scarcity and gets you thinking that if you don't buy this now, you'll never be able to buy it again. I also think that as influencer marketing becomes more and more relevant and common, a lot of brands will be getting influencers to convince shoppers that if you just buy this item or that item, you'll finally be happy or cool or affluent or whatever adjective you want as them. So there's a lot of stuff that plays into this early shopping overconsumption trend that we're seeing more and more of.
On the topic of using anchoring, something that I've learned to do in college when it comes to big sales, specifically online, is using extensions to look at price history. Some sellers actually jack up their price prior to the sales event and then slash it down during to give you the illusion that you're buying it at the lowest price possible. But if you expand it to like a 6-month or 3-month view, you'll find that the price you're buying it day of is the same price as it was before, which, I don't know, sounds a little unethical to me.
It's sort of like, you know how we have to remove the word new from marketing after I think 6 months of a product launching? It kind of feels like you shouldn't be able to advertise something as a sale if it's the same price as it originally was. I don't know.
In addition to the manipulative tactics that these sales use, I feel like overall there's also a culture of performance on consumption. So expanding a little bit on the illusion of scarcity, the holiday shopping window also creates the illusion or normalizes spending because everyone else is doing it. Buying, it's like forcing you to buy sales just because it's discounted, regardless of whether or not you need it or want it. Because it's almost like second nature that you have to start buying things during this time, that you just do it without giving it much thought. Haul videos are a big contributor to this. Over the years, it might have diminished. I don't know. It's out of my algorithm at this point, but it's still a really big content category online during shopping times, where people go through dozens of packages that they have bought and finally came to their house. From personal experience, by watching these haul videos, it really makes you feel a sense of FOMO. It gets you questioning, like, why didn't I think of buying it when there was a flash sale? Or I wish I bought something like that, even though you didn't need it at the time of seeing it.
Now, let's trace this all back to the commercialization of holidays, because if you think about it, when did religious holidays become shopping experiences? I'd say even though Christmas, Hanukkah, and other wintertime holidays are often grounded in religion, religious celebrations, or just historical religious dates, these have all become commercial holidays. The practice of gift giving on Christmas, for example, it's not new necessarily. I did some research because I was trying to find some facts, and it does seem like gift giving as a Christmas tradition dates really far back in history, but it's carried over to the modern day in a really caricaturized version where people are encouraged to go all out for their loved ones and their friends, and sometimes even their coworkers.
I have something to add to that. I think a really good example, observation, evidence, you can say, of the commercialization of holidays is the way that it carries over to other culture and or religion, even though it's not part of someone's. So in the US, we're a big melting pot of different cultures, people immigrating from different countries. Not everyone's Christian, yet people like my family still celebrate Christmas. Maybe less in the traditional sense, like we don't go to church, but we still would get like a mini Christmas tree, or we do gift swaps, just because it's almost like a tradition that everyone engages in during this time. China is a huge, I guess you can call it, atheist country. There's no religion, or people aren't really religious there, yet still engages in certain Christmas practices, especially on the commercial side. So big malls would decorate their department stores in pine trees, as well as sparkling green and red lights. There's also a tradition of gifting apples to friends. I'm sure there's certain sales running during that time. So I think that speaks to the commercialization of holidays, where it leaves the original origin of celebrating like a particular religious date or a historical event and becomes something more so about buying.
On a semi-related tangent about the spread of certain traditions related to Christmas, I think we kind of take the snowy imagery associated with Christmas as a given or just a part of the holiday. But for our American listeners, I'd like to prompt you to think about how it's pretty Eurocentric to associate, the North Pole, snow, all of that. Because although most people don't think about this, the Southern Hemisphere experiences summer in December. This imagery doesn't resonate with a lot of the population. In fact, the majority of the Earth's Christians are also living in the Southern Hemisphere. So for the majority of people who see this as a religious observance, there's no snow, there's no sleighs, white Christmas, all of that vibe. But just some food for thought.
In addition to the commercialization of holidays, another changing holiday culture is gifting, or like the pressure of gifting, as it's a really big, can I call it a motif of the holidays? It's not a holiday unless you gift someone something or you receive gifts yourself. But is it just me, or is there a growing pressure to be more creative, personal, and intentional with what you gift to other people? And I was just sitting here this morning reflecting on my own gifting practices over the years, comparing it obviously with my family. But it seems that when I buy gifts for people, I really have to put in a lot of thought on whether or not it's usable. Like, I just cannot bring myself to buy someone something that I don't think they'll use in the future. Or I just straight up ask people what they want. So there's a service called Elfster that my friends and I used in college, where we literally just imported our Amazon wish list and someone picked something from there and gifted it to me. I feel like overall there's like a anti-flex culture in terms of the monetary side of gifting that we're currently seeing, I believe, among Gen Z, where thoughtfulness is the currency and not so much how valuable in dollar terms your gift is. Because when I think about my older relatives, my aunt, my grandma, they're very cognizant of what the recipient of their gifts will think about the gift itself. Is it bougie? Is it a name brand like Coach? So I feel like for them, it's a little bit more of wealth signaling, whereas for me, it's more about thoughtfulness. And maybe even, is it showcasing my personal character? What does it say about me as a person? That's the thought.
I do think that thoughtfulness and intention with gift giving seems to be big for Gen Z. I'm not saying other generations don't do it. I'm commenting anecdotally on our experience as two Gen Z women. There's a lot of push towards personalization and even experiential gifting, which we did talk about last time, how our generation seems to really like the idea of something being practical and usable. It's not just, hey, here's something I spent money on for you. It's, hey, here's a gift I spent money on because I think it'll serve you in some way. It can be just a decoration, but it could also be something for crafting or something to help with cooking or baking. It doesn't have to be an experience in the sense of a trip or a show or something like that. In simpler words, as I put it, because Hebe called me a modern Shakespeare, it's the idea of, I saw this and I thought of you, because to be loved is to be known.
Mic drop.
It is to be seen and heard.
Period.
And remembered.
I'm crying. And I feel like because the gifting culture is shifting for various reasons, obviously there's something specific to maybe social media, but also budget or piss poor broke. I cannot afford buying Coach bags the ways that my aunt and grandma can. So I feel like there's a lot of ways of getting people gifts.
One thing that I'm personally trying this year is focusing my efforts on shopping small and shopping local, I think my opinion is that one of the best and most meaningful ways to spend money during the holidays, while also supporting artisans and ensuring that your gifts are unique, is to avoid buying mass produced, very generic items from major corporations and instead supporting local small businesses. I think Gen Z does tend to do this pretty frequently, but if you think about it, it just makes sense.
Yeah, and when people like reflect back on the gift itself, I think it's much cooler to say, oh, someone got this for me at a New York City Christmas market, then, oh yeah, they bought it from Amazon and shipped it over to my house. There's no lore behind it.
Similarly, you get the same effect if you hand make something. I think arts and crafts are inherently very personalized and very thoughtful. I've seen people give gifts that they've knit or painted, and I'm sure with the economic cost of living, unemployment crisis that we're surviving through, we will probably see more thrifty gift ideas coming to the surface in the next few years.
For sure. I don't know if our listeners are aware or are doing this themselves, but recycling and reusing gifts and or thrifting is very common. I've done it before. I've seen people have done it before, but I guess there's like a notion when you think about recycling gifts that it's cheap. You're just trying to throw away things you don't want, things that society might be frowning upon. But I think it's an ethically correct practice to help reduce waste and to actually repurpose something that you won't use, especially if it's something that's not even opened yet. And going back to what Valentina just said, like 1 minute before, we're living in a time of inflation. Things are really unstable. You probably don't have the budget to go out and buy something brand new. So I feel like recycling and reusing gifts will also be something we'll see on the rise with Gen Z.
Lastly, Hebe and I both talked about this right before recording. There's been a lot of de-influencing as a trend lately. I've personally enjoyed seeing de-influencing content this past quarter all over my Instagram, my TikTok, and even on my YouTube feed as long-form content.
Same. And also not so much on de-influencing itself, but also like just preventing the splurge and overconsumption. A practice that my friends and I have engaged in is simply putting a cap, a cap on the wish list to a certain amount. So when we agreed to do Secret Santa, to do gift exchange, we all agreed on a certain budget and we don't exceed it, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. No one's pressured to spend anything beyond their means, and also just not go crazy.
I think a lot of people online, even creators, are leaning on social media as a way to be discouraged from shopping mindlessly. So whether that's setting a budget or discussing, financial literacy, or talking about why a product isn't as good as it might seem online. It's a fun way to see de-influencing happen, because for me personally, it's almost like getting a bucket of ice cold water dumped on me, which is related to Project Pan, which Hebe and I have mentioned before on the podcast, which, as a reminder, is essentially just a trend that encourages people to use their products to completion before buying something new that serves a similar purpose. So before getting your third Summer Fridays lip balm, use your first two and then also your Rhode peptides and everything else that you already bought. For the holidays, there are a lot of gift sets that get pushed and influencers telling you to buy before the season is over. But if you think about it, you don't really need a new, slightly different shade of something that you already own, which will probably be forgotten, discarded, wasting away, expiring in your drawers for months. In the end, I guess you could say that all roads lead back to sustainability, or at the very least, they probably should. A 2019 study, which was 6 years ago, almost 7 at this point, by the Green Alliance found that 80% of Black Friday purchases, including the plastic that it comes in, ends up in landfills. 80%. Just think about it. So shout out to Professor Phil Purnell and Dr. Ann Valenter for that, because when you put it into perspective, it is a little bit easier to avoid the FOMO of not overspending on Black Friday.
I feel like Black Friday is just people buying and returning stuff once they hit the realization that they don't want this, that they don't need this, and now they want their money back.
Also, guys, if you're listening to this, 15% off is not worth it, especially for something where it's supposed to be a big sales holiday. So just know your worth.
Know your worth is crazy.
Anyways, as we always say, as marketers, we have to turn the theme back into brand takeaways and marketing during this time. So we thought we'd open up the conversation to what makes a successful holiday campaign, and also more generally, campaigns during the holiday season. For me personally, I think one big theme that we see is a catering to emotions, specifically the emotions and themes that surround the winter holiday season. There's a lot of gratitude, especially with something like Thanksgiving, a lot of themes of family, new starts, sentimental endings when the new year comes around. Something else for me personally that just really works is a trend towards giving back. Now, that could be giving back to your consumers with giveaways. It could be giving back to local communities or broader charitable causes. So matching monetary donations. Maybe your brand does something where it donates one item per item purchased, or partners with other brands that have similar industries or themes for your consumers to get some freebies during the holidays. I think that's always nice to see.
I think for me, a successful holiday campaign is making sure that people know about it and are expecting it and can see it. Not to be a cynic here, but do people really care about holiday campaigns when there's so much information thrown at you? Just think about all the Black Friday sales, Cyber Monday, X, Y, and Z doing this and that. I feel like during this time, sales win by default. The lowest cost wins, because that's the point of this whole month of shopping, is to get the best deals. But there are a couple that I feel like defy this principle and really stand out to me. One being Starbucks Red Cup, where they essentially use limited edition reusable red cups to serve their coffee or their drinks to consumers. I feel like people have always been on the watch out for this specific event. I don't think there's any discounting related to it either, which is why I have it as one of the standout campaigns during the season, because it doesn't tap into discounts, and it's not so much about buying things that might have been on your wish lists. The second one isn't even related to the holidays, but stood out in terms of just visibility on the internet during a time when everyone's shopping, and that is Spotify Wrapped. I feel like at this point, everyone is conditioned to look for their Wrapped or their replay, depending on what service you have during this time. And I think it took a huge share of conversation on social media, away from the holidays, away from sales. And I think that's really impressive. And then Sephora annual savings. So a little bit more on the sales side. They are able to pull this before Black Friday. And again, I was online researching what exact dates are they releasing the discounts to insiders so I can do my cosmetic shopping. Not all of them have to do with the holidays in the traditional sense. So not having these Christmassy themes, jingles, or even visual elements, but something I or other people deliberately seek out because I know it's coming.
For Spotify Wrapped, I just want to take a moment to shout out the intern who changed December culture, not just for Spotify, but for all the brands that replicate Wrapped now. I think her name was Jewel Ham. She has not been given credit. She was an intern. And I think just for any brand leaders listening, please credit your interns and uplift underrepresented voices because they can really change the game. And now Spotify Wrapped has become such a phenomenon that when I was canceling my Spotify subscription earlier this year, the only thing that made me hesitate was that I wanted to see my Wrapped at the end of the year. And it's not even good anymore because it's just AI slop. Take what you want from that.
Speak your truth, queen.
Some other successful holiday-specific campaigns by brands that I'm thinking about, so not so much on the sales side that Hebe introduced. Coca-Cola sort of owns the Christmas season, I think, especially in the US. I think for the past 100 years, they've had sort of a brand claim on Santa Claus and these little polar bears in their imagery. This year, they used AI for their quote-unquote iconic ads, and they got a lot of backlash, and I think that's rightful, and they sort of demonstrated flop behavior. I was disappointed to see that, but I think it's always worth mentioning the successful Christmas branding they've developed over the past century, I guess.
Yeah, we can circle back on the AI topic in a future episode. This is us planting just future topics and not circling back to them. But Valentina and I have some very hot opinions on the use of AI in creative space, whether it's about the economic implication or just the ethics of it. I think it's a huge topic to talk about from our perspective. But while we're on the topic of soda brands, it seems like a lot of beverage companies are really pushing innovation in holiday spaces. And for Christmas, the select is cranberry. You saw that spray did cranberry, and now we have cranberry fizz and cranberry blitz from Poppy and Starry respectively. I feel like we're going to see innovation trying to own certain moments. You saw that Poppy did the Maya Papaya drink to capitalize on that Love Island phenomenon that happened earlier this year. So this is something we could expect going forward.
Yeah. Another soda brand that I think does the holidays really well is Olipop. I think last year was the first year they used the Yetis. I don't know if I'd call them a brand mascot, but I saw them everywhere on their holiday LTOs and all the ads that accompanied that. And I thought it was a really good way to use a brand asset to make something feel very heartwarming and cozy without being over the top or cringe. I don't know if cringe is the right word, but it just didn't feel forced. And now when I see the Olipop winter cans, it's very familiar because I recognize the imagery that's on them.
You have to define LTOs for our viewers.
Limited time offering.
Something else that popped up this season with a relatively big splash is Kim Kardashian's live stream shopping. It's called Kimsmas Live, but Valentina had a better idea where we get Kris Jenner to do it and call it Christmas Live. Missed opportunity. But she tapped into the medium of live stream shopping where she promoted the Skims holiday collection as well as certain limited edition bundles. I think she even brought out some celebrity guests, but to be honest, I did not tune in. As well as did live giveaways for people who were in the comments, engaging, etc. This is, I guess, a relatively new form for mainstream media. There's live stream shopping happening all the time. But I feel like in my space, this is the first time I've seen a bigger name celebrity do it. Especially someone like Kim Kardashian who holds really a lot of like economic power or influence over retail consumption.
Yeah. To be clear, getting money from live streaming on TikTok is not necessarily new. There are a lot of people who will go on live and just milk out gifts from viewers. But live stream shopping in particular is something that Hebe and I have called out because it's major in China and has been for years. If you are not familiar with Li Jiaqi, his story is one that's worth spending some time with because he gets on live and at his prime, he was selling billions of dollars of product in like a 12-hour stream. If you've not heard about that, get educated. And if you decide not to and live stream shopping becomes major in the next 2 to 5 years, I hope you feel bad about yourself. because we told you.
It's actually insane how his tax evasion fine is higher than salaries. He was fined for 210 million yuan, which is incredible because that's only like a percentage of his total income. We're ahead of our times, but would love to plan another future episode right here, right now, because something I think is really interesting is to look at the difference in live stream shopping model in China or East Asia versus the West. I feel like Kim Kardashian is starting to bridge that gap with her celebrity status, but we'd love to see what happens in the future.
We are a content machine. We never run out of ideas. But with that, we will conclude our very jolly episode of Let's Circle Back, which is the penultimate one for the year.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's conversation about holiday marketing and everything that comes with it.
We chatted through some commercialization trends, what gift giving looks like in 2025, and what makes a successful holiday campaign. All pretty good stuff, if you ask me.
Please follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram to keep up with our content between uploads. As always, we've been your hosts. I'm Hebe.
And I'm Valentina.
And we'll see you next time.